Okay, so hey guys, and welcome back to another predictions video, and in today's video I'm going to be predicting the Riakporhe versus Billam-Smith rematch. And so if you are new around here and you haven't yet subscribed, please do so. Like the video if you do indeed like the video, and let's get straight into it. So going into this fight, Billam-Smith is 19-1 with 13 KOs and Riakporhe is 17-0 with 13 KOs. This fight is for the WBO World Cruiserweight title. Billam-Smith's last fight was a win via stoppage in round 8 versus Masternak, and Riakporhe's last fight was a win via TKO in round 2 versus Brigion. Their first fight ended with Riakporhe winning via split decision in 2019. And to speak a bit more about what I've just been saying, obviously the rematch, it's been anticipated for a long time. Realistic wise, there's been a lot of issues with both Billam-Smith and Masternak and Riakporhe with getting opponents, and especially with Riakporhe, he's not really been overly active, and I'm sure that's not all like his fault, and he probably is annoyed that that has been the case. And this fight has just seemingly taken a little bit longer to make than perhaps it should have, but nonetheless it's nice to see this rematch be made, and they have progressed a lot as fighters since the first fight, and so I'm sure, like the first fight was, this one's going to be an entertaining fight. I could definitely see this being a brawl, entertaining type fight. Obviously, WBO World Cruiserweight Championship now on the line. This is Billam-Smith's title, in which he's now been defending against good quality opposition against, and I mean, realistically, the Okolie fight, he fought well. He had to show adversity. Well, he had to show how to deal with adversity and how to deal with just a very tricky fighter, and Okolie was just being annoying realistically throughout a lot of the fight, but he handled it well and of course managed to get the win. The Masternak one was an interesting fight. I mean, he was losing, and you can't really deny that. He was losing quite badly, to be fair. He just seemed to struggle with the output from Masternak and the movement from Masternak, and he just couldn't seem to pin him down. And I don't necessarily know movement wise if he's going to have that problem dealing with Riakporhe for this fight, but nonetheless there is that aspect shown there where if an opponent isn't just going to stand and trade with Billam-Smith, then he might struggle with you. And I mean, it was a nice shot that he landed to be able to hurt Masternak and, you know, damage his body, but nonetheless it was still, it was a clear fight where he was losing, and you don't regularly see, you know, fighters go from that type of a bad beating, well, not bad beating, but that type of dominating the win, well, dominating in the opposition's favour win, and then be able to go on to such a huge fight. And you know, he has, and I'm sure confidence wise perhaps it might have knocked him a little bit. I feel like maybe he's got a little bit less momentum with him than that of Riakporhe at the moment. I mean, Riakporhe's been coming off stoppage after stoppage. Obviously it's not been quite near the level of opposition as to what Billam-Smith's been against. I mean, it's not been bad, some of them. I mean, the Brigion fight was, and you know, there's been a couple of fights where he's been questionable opponents, but he's fought the likes of Seslak and Turchi as well, and so there has been a good level of opposition. Like I say, it's just not been quite probably as active as he would have wanted to. I believe he only fought twice last year, and so yeah, it's not been as active as Billam-Smith, but you know, he's been getting them early stoppage wins as well. Typically he is quite a patient, slower starter at times, but he has been getting early stoppages as well, so it shows that he has that power in his arsenal. And of course, I suppose to speak about both fighters, Riakporhe as a fighter, he's typically a front foot type fighter. I think realistically they both are front foot type fighters. They both want to be the one controlling the centre of the ring, but that's what made that first fight interesting, because they wanted to just both be there. But to be fair to Riakporhe, he was the one that was pushing Billam-Smith back throughout the majority of that first fight. He's aggressive. I think we've seen perhaps a little bit of a new aggression from him, especially in that last fight. I mean, I had the pleasure to speak to him after that last fight, and I don't know, he just seemed eager to really go in and just put out a destructive performance against Brigion. And in a fight like that, where it is against an opponent which you know isn't really against a level in which you should be fighting, you should be able to get him out of there, and you should be able to do it with relative amounts of ease, and it should be a showing of level and a showing of class. And he did that, and he looked aggressive, and he was good when he did it. He does feint relatively well. Like I say, he is typically patient, but he has that controlled kind of in-your-face physical pressure where he isn't throwing loads, but it's that physical presence that he does have which is going to be pushing you back. He's got relatively fast hands when he wants to have them. I feel like perhaps they are a little bit faster in general than that of Billam-Smith. He goes to the body well. He steps into his punches quite nicely as well. He's powerful, of course, strong. He can fight in close or at a mid-range, just like that of Billam-Smith. They can both kind of fight wherever the fight necessarily takes them. He moves you around the ring. I mean, to be fair, when he was fighting Billam-Smith in that first fight physically, he was kind of throwing Billam-Smith around the ring a lot of the time, and perhaps it was a little bit dirty at times, and so, you know, I wouldn't be surprised if some sort of point deduction or some sort of something like that ends up happening for this fight for either of the two, but nonetheless, he can have that ability to, like I say, he's that strong that he can just move you around the ring, and he puts his combinations nicely together, and like I say, when he goes to the body and has relatively good counters as well, when he's got that timing of you coming in, it's nice to see, and he can land clean. He did land clean in that first fight versus Billam-Smith. Negatives about him: he's not as experienced at a high level, like I've touched upon. His defensive movement, just like that of Billam-Smith, isn't really anything too crazy. Like I say, I don't really think he's going to be fighting like Masternak did against him, and so that kind of formula to beat Billam-Smith, like I mentioned, I don't necessarily think we're going to end up seeing. He is not really faced somebody too much who's put on that physical pressure against him, and I think perhaps when Billam-Smith did put on a little bit, then Riakporhe did start to hold and things like that. So if Billam-Smith can try and impose himself onto the front foot, then that could be a formula for him to be able to gain success. He hasn't really been put on the back foot too much, Riakporhe, so perhaps he hasn't managed to deal with it quite so much. He can slow. I think he can be a little bit impatient, but that's definitely improved. Like I say, he's becoming more patient, and that's really nice to see. But earlier on, especially in that first fight, perhaps he was a little bit impatient. He, like I say, can be a little bit of a slow starter at times and can perhaps smother his work and be perhaps a little bit predictable at times. I think the arsenal of Billam-Smith, fundamentals-wise, is a little bit better than that of Riakporhe's. And I suppose to speak about Billam-Smith, he's quite composed in his work. I mean, Riakporhe's similar as well. They are both relatively composed. They don't really ever seem too flustered. Like I say, in close mid-range type fighter. Has a nice high guard, similar to that of Riakporhe's high guard as well, but also there was weaknesses shown from that high guard against Masternak because them straight shots were getting through and that leaky, perhaps high guard was being shown. He, like I say, front foot, perhaps can fight better on the back foot than that of Riakporhe. He finds his range well, got a nice strong jab, he's accurate in his work, he turns into his punches nicely, he's strong-willed. That's something in which, you know, is the vintage Billam-Smith that we're used to seeing. Every fight, seemingly now, he's had to go to the trenches at some point and had to really dig deep and shown his good chin and shown that he can push through, and not many fighters have that, and it's a really difficult trait to be able to learn, and Billam-Smith just seems to have that really strong-willed desire to just be able to go through any sort of punishment that he perhaps takes. He has got a good chin, like I say. He's got that second wind aspect as well, like similar fighters such as like Tyson Fury have, where they can go into that second wind, and even if they are hurt, they can come back and push through that, and, you know, like I say, gain that momentum into the later rounds when their opponent starts to slow down, which I think he did do and was starting to do against Masternak. When he goes to the body, it's nice. He sometimes can headhunt perhaps a little bit at times, but when he does go to the body, it is really nice. Negatives about him: he stands tall. He's a big target. Has to be hit defensive movement wise as well. There's not really too much there. Same head on line. I don't think he's quite as fast, like I say. He can stay in range too long and then be countered from that, and I think he was also rushing in a little bit against Riakporhe, but I don't think we'll see that again. I think he has improved from that. But yeah, like I say, he can stand in range too long, and Riakporhe might be able to time him with shots from doing that. Punching in combinations, I feel like perhaps sometimes the combinations aren't quite as fluid as that of Riakporhe's. His planting of feet, sometimes like Riakporhe, often at times they can just often plant their feet, cover up, take punishment, then try and respond instead of, you know, readjusting, circling round, trying to then find a new angle, creating space from there. Perhaps was a little bit too confident against Masternak. I don't know if that was necessarily the case. He was the home fighter, and of course Riakporhe's the home fighter for this one, so maybe that level of confidence and that underdog mentality could be there for Billam-Smith. I'm not entirely sure, but maybe perhaps he was a little bit too confident. Maybe him fighting away from home could be a good thing for this fight. Like I say, just showing that when the sport perhaps isn't really all in his favour, he can still show that he is not, like I say, coming in too confident. Pinning you down, like I say, his timing, I feel like sometimes can be a little bit of a problem as well. Does tire and does have his chin in the air at points as well. Riakporhe is the favourite for this fight, and I think that Riakporhe will win via a unanimous decision. I think he's going to be able to box a bit better than he did. I think he's going to tie up, I don't know, he might tie up late into the later rounds, but I think if he doesn't start quite so patient as sometimes what he does, and starts going to the body and digging and investing in shots, I think defensive wise there are more weaknesses in Billam-Smith's game, and Riakporhe, I believe, will be able to push through them and show that. And if he is physical on the front foot like he was in the first fight, I think judges are going to see that. And if it's not too messy, then see the work in which Riakporhe can do on the inside. Like I say, Billam-Smith can fight on the inside as well, but perhaps, in my opinion, Riakporhe's inside as well because it's a little bit better. And then, yeah, be able to get a unanimous decision win. I don't think he's going to be able to stop Billam-Smith, and it's going to be interesting to see what Riakporhe is going to be like into the later rounds. Like I said, it's been a while since we've realistically seen that in what him be in the later rounds, so that will be interesting to see. But like I said, I do believe he will be able to get that unanimous decision victory. He might even have to face a little bit of adversity going into the later rounds, Riakporhe, but I think that's when he might tie up, and that's when it just could be a little bit of a sloppy end few around. And then who could go on to fight? You know, I'd love to see the Opetaia fight, of course, IBF champion and everything like that, but just with Matchroom and Boxer, they just seem to be refusing to really work together, and they just don't really seem to care about that. So it's sad to see, but I don't necessarily think that will be next. Briedis, that could be a fight to be made. Briedis really showed a good, account of himself, even being on the older side and things like that. He still showed a very good account of himself, so that could be a great fight for Riakporhe or Michaelian, WBC champion, another opponent there to get a world championship, I suppose, and is somebody who has not really been fighting too much, and I don't know too much about on paper, but nonetheless it could be an easier way for him to get another world title opportunity to then become, on the line to become undisputed. But yeah, that is it for today's video. Hope you did enjoy. Like the video if you did, indeed like the video, subscribe if you're new, and thanks for watching.